Hi, this is Bird from Birds SVGs, and in this video we'll be putting together the Snowflake 3D sleigh, and this is from the Home for Christmas SVG collection. So first of all, we're going to put together our sides. Eventually our sides will actually be 3 layers thick, so I wanted this to be a nice sturdy sleigh for you. But first of all, we're going to put together the 2 layers on each side. So these pieces, you'll know which ones go together because the textured side of your paper, or if you're using pattern paper of course, will be on the same side. So the only difference between the 2 pieces is that the lower part of the sleigh, I'm not sure what that lower part's called, but that is thinner on one of the pieces. So there's actually a wider border on the second piece. So I'm adding glue to the whole of the back of the piece that's narrower, let's say the pieces around the bottom where the swirly area is. That's narrower on this piece. So I'm adding glue to the back of this, and I'm trying my best to go as fast as I can and add glue to the whole area. I wasn't terribly successful, so I did actually go back over a few little areas, but I would recommend making sure that you go around the perimeter of the whole filigree area and do the bottom areas, and then you know, you don't have to cover the whole side. Add a few dots sporadically here and there, and that will be enough to hold it. Okay, so I'm just going to put that into place and make sure that my border is even around all of the edges. So I've kind of got that narrower layer central to the backing layer, and you can tell when it's in place because the snowflakes will line up perfectly. Okay, so I'm just going to repeat the process for the other side. Now this is easier because I've got a precision tip with my glue. A lot more glues are actually coming with the precision tips now, so if you can find one of those, obviously with any of these kind of overlays or intricate die cuts, it can be really helpful. But like I say, if you don't, then go around the outside of the whole sleigh, do all the bottom areas, and then just add it here and there throughout the snowflake area. And then if you do find, when you put your 2 pieces together, if you find that any of the edges of the snowflakes are kind of coming apart, you can just run either like a really thin spatula, you know, that you use to take your pieces off your sticky mat, or just a piece of card. Put a little bit of glue on the end and then slide it between the pieces, and then you'll be able to pinch them together and they'll hold. Okay, so I'm happy that I've got enough glue on my second smaller layer, and again I'm trying to line it up with the snowflakes on the larger piece, and then I'll know that I've got my border even all the way around the edges then. So I've got my 2 pieces, and now I'm just going to put my center channel together. So I'm folding along the score lines, and then I need to glue these 2 pieces together. But what I want to make sure on this piece, which is a little bit unusual, is that when we glue it onto the sides of our sleigh, we're going to have the textured side on the outside, because that's what you'll be able to see, because we're going to be covering over the inside of our sleigh with some pattern paper. So we want the tab that we glue to be on the non-textured side, on the inside, and we want the texture to be on the outside. So we're folding our tabs now and the teeth towards the plain side, the non-textured side. So just go along bending them all up, and then what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to curve the outside edges a little bit, because in a minute that's the direction I'll need those to take. So I'm just starting it off a little bit, just curving them, getting them used to the general direction that they'll need to be in. So the first area I'm going to glue down is the straight tab. Now where that goes is along the bottom edge of the snowflake area. So if you want to work out where it goes, just think, well, the tab you don't want showing through the snowflakes, so it just goes on that little piece just below where the filigree is. And then one by one, well actually not one by one, on average I add glue to about 3 to 4 tabs at a time, and then I'm going to press them into place. But my main thing that I need to concentrate on is the right hand side, that the side of my sleigh doesn't actually come past the edge underneath, because I need this area where where this central channel to be right on the very edge of my sleigh, because I've got an internal panel that's going to go in to cover the tabs up, and I need there to be enough room for that to slide in. So I'm just making sure when I press down with my left hand that I'm actually sliding them out a little bit towards the outside edge if they need to go a little bit further to the right. So a few at a time, I'm adding glue, and you'll see there that I just used my spatula actually to bend the teeth up just so I could get the tip of my glue bottle in there. Now, as you get towards the top, there's a bit more of a curve. So the best thing to do is to add glue to less tabs. So I went down from 4 to 3 tabs, and then when I get right to the top edge, I'm only adding glue to 2 tabs at a time, because there's a lot more of a curve at that top edge, and you get a little bit of resistance on the card as it flexes. So I'm just adding it to 2 tabs at a time. So as I carry on round the curve, I'm pressing down with my left hand, sliding it slightly outwards as I go if it needs it, and then I can push back inwards if it goes over the outside edge with my right hand. Okay, so once the glue's taken hold there, that's that side completed. And then I'll go to the other side. And in the beginning, I add glue to about 4 tabs. And as we work our way up, we'll add glue to less as we go, as the curve progresses. So obviously I'm working on opposite hands now, so I'm pushing down with my right hand and sliding it slightly outwards if needed, and then I'll slide it back inwards with my left hand. So I've got a bit of a balancing act between the 2 hands. So Lily wants to be in the video. Don't you? Good girl. Okay, so I'm going to keep on carrying on. I'm using my spatula to get underneath the teeth and bend them up if there isn't enough room for the nozzle on my glue bottle to fit in there. And then I'm just gradually working my way up, adding the glue, pressing down with my right hand, making sure it doesn't exceed the outside edge of my left hand. And then as I work my way up to the top, I'm now adding glue to 3 tabs, and then in a moment I'll reduce that to just 2 tabs at a time. Okay, so now I've got my other side, and I'm adding the glue to the long tab, and again I'm going to be gluing that into place at the bottom of that filigree part, at the very top of where those 3 gaps are in the bottom part of our sleigh. And then once that long tab is in place, we can start on our sides. So I'm getting in there with my spatula and bending the teeth up so I can get my glue bottle in there. And then start working my way up, a few teeth at a time. And then you can't see very well what I'm doing here because it's kind of all on the inside. But I'm just working my way up both sides, one side at a time, just the same as I did on the other side of the sleigh. And here I am, I'm just fixing the last couple of tabs into place. Right, and you can see the tabs there on the inside. So we've got these two insert panels, and they're filigree as well. So you want to put them on the inside of the sleigh with the textured side showing inside. Again, it's easy enough for me to go around and add glue to the whole of the area. But just go around the perimeter and add a few bits to the central snowflake area if you don't have a precision tip. I'm trying to add this as quick as I can because, you know, it can, the first bits you add down can end up drying on you if you take too long. But I'm trying to go as quick as I can. And then I'm going to slide that in, and I'm going to use the snowflakes again for my placement. I want the snowflakes to line up perfectly. Okay, so we're on to the last side. So when the sleigh is assembled to this point, you should have your textured paper on the sides of your sleigh. These insert panels should have textured paper, the textured side showing inwards. But the channel down the middle, that should have the textured side facing down and out. Because in a moment we're going to be covering up the inside layer of that center channel. I'm not sure if I'm actually being drowned out by a purring cat because she sat on my desk. I apologise if I am. Okay, again, we're sliding that insert panel into place. And not only does that strengthen up the sides a little bit, but it covers up all of those tabs. So nobody can see your workings and it's all nice and neat. Right, so you've got 3 pieces of pattern paper for the inside of your sleigh. This bottom piece looks almost square, but it's not. So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to see which way round it goes in the bottom of my sleigh, because it isn't actually square. So it can only go one way round, and that's best to check before you add the glue. So once I know which way round it goes, it's difficult to tell because I used check paper, but if you're using a pattern paper with a design on it, it'll probably be easier to tell. Okay, these outside 2 pieces, because they're not going onto flat surfaces, I'm just curving them a bit so it's easier to glue them into place. And then I'm adding my glue. And then I'm going to slide them into my sleigh, and then I'm going to kind of cup them either side with my hand and try and smooth them into place so they take hold, because it is a curved surface. So I'm just taking a moment to make sure that all the edges are sticking down and that it's not going to lift on me. And I'll do the same with the other side. So I've curved it a bit before I add my glue. And then I'm going to slide it into place. And I'm going to try and smooth it into place on my hands, and I kind of hold my hands around it, I cup my hands around it and try and smooth all the edges down, make sure that they're all nicely in place. So we've got all of our interior all covered over. We've covered over our tabs with our side inserts, and we've covered over that tab that was on that center channel with our pattern paper. So now we're going to move on to strengthening the bottom of our sleigh so it can actually hold some, some packages of sweets or something like that. Now you've got these 2 kind of strange looking pieces. You want to fold along the top, and then you want to add glue to the non-textured side. And when you slide them into place, the front and the back is a slightly different shape, so it can only go in one way, and it's best to try that out before you put the glue on. But as I'd already put the glue on, I tried the other piece in place and that didn't fit, so I knew I was on the right side. They can only go in one way round. So if you look at the sleigh, you've got a narrower layer on the outside and the inside of the bottom part of the sleigh. On this piece, I'm adding my glue to the twirly bits, but not the square. And I found that's easier to slide it into place, make sure that all the swirls are in place, and then I can add the glue to the bottom panel that just covers the base of the sleigh there. So we've added an extra layer to the base of our sleigh, and then we've just got this strengthening support. Now this isn't a very big piece, but it actually does add a lot of rigidity to the bottom of your sleigh. So with the pattern, the textured side, should I say, facing upwards, you want to fold along all the score lines towards yourself. Now one of these pieces is slightly smaller or slightly shorter than the other piece, and that's the piece you want to be on the inside. So you want to glue the two pieces together with the ever so slightly shorter piece on the top. Now it's very important that you fold these pieces before you glue them, because if you glue them flat and then you try and bend them, you'll have a bit of difficulty. Okay, so I'm happy they're glued together. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just add some glue below that fold line, just on one side. And then it goes on the very most center two, I don't even know what they're called, kind of downward struts. And then once that's in place there, I'm adding some glue to the other side below the fold line and the little rectangle in the middle. So you're going to flip it over. You want to make sure that it's in place on the opposite side of the sleigh. And then the final step is to smooth the rectangle onto the base. So you want to make sure that the outside two pieces are in place first, and then smooth the rectangle piece down. That way it won't get twisted. And you'll be surprised how much extra support that gives to your sleigh. So if you do the same as I did and want to put a bag of sweets in there or something, it will actually be strong enough to hold it. So not only can this be a centerpiece, but it can actually be, you know, a great gift vehicle.